See over here, initially the charges on sphere A and B are QA and QB respectively. So let's just take A and B. Charge on A is QA and charge on B is QB. Now next, a third sphere C of the same size that is uncharged is brought in contact with the first. So you have C which is brought in contact with this, and the charge on C is 0. Now since both these spheres are identical, charge will be equally distributed between them. Had the spheres not been identical, then the charge would have been distributed till the potential on both the spheres would have become equal. So now the charge is QA by 2, and this is also QA by 2. Now next what is done is, this sphere is next brought in contact with sphere B and then finally removed. So when this is brought in contact with B, the total charge is QA by 2 plus QB. Now this charge is going to be distributed between both B and C. Again, each of them will acquire an equal charge, and the charge flow will take till the potentials are equal. In this case, again, since the spheres are identical, the charge will get equally distributed, which means each acquires this charge. So now we can say that the charge on B is this, which is QA by 4 plus QB by 2, and the charge on sphere A is QA by 2. When a beam of charged particles enters into a magnetic field, it experiences a force which is the Lorentz force, which is Q V cross B. In this case, V and B are perpendicular to each other, so we can write this as QVB, and this provides the centripetal force mv square by r. Now this gives us the radius r as mv by qb. Now the question says that the beam of protons and deuterons both have the same momentum, so we can write this as p, the momentum, over qb. Now the charge of a proton is plus 1e, and this is the charge of a proton. And the charge of a deuteron is also the nucleus of a deuterium. Deuterium is the isotope of hydrogen, which has 1 electron, 1 proton, and in addition to that it has 1 neutron. So the charge is again going to be plus E in this case. This is a deuteron. Now if you're talking of the nucleus of a deuteron, then we have a charge of 1 proton, which is plus E. Next, let us take a look at the ratio of the radii of the circular paths described by them. So R1 is to R2. Now the momentum of both the particles is the same, and the charges are also the same, and they are entering the same magnetic field. So the ratio would be 1:1. See, a repeater station helps to increase the range of a transmitting station. So it helps to increase the range of a transmitter. See, now how does this work? Say you have a transmitting station which is placed at a height so that the range is more, it reaches a greater distance. Say you have a transmitting station which is over here at a height, and this is able to transmit signals to a certain range, which is given by under root 2 RH. Now within this range you have a repeater station. So this repeater station is going to receive the signal. This is going to receive the signal and then amplify it, and after that it is going to transmit it once again. Now again you can have another repeater station which is going to catch this signal, receive it, amplify it, and again transmit it, which means that the same signal which would have reached, say, up till this distance is now reaching a distance which is further off. So the range of the transmitter station can be increased by using a repeater. Okay, now a NAND gate is an AND gate followed by a NOT gate. So you have two inputs, A and B, and let's label the output as Y. Now to write the truth table, we have to take the inputs and the output. For input you take all possible combinations of 0, 1. So 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1 and 1, 1. Now had this been just an AND gate, then the output would have been 0, 0, 0 and 1. So in case of a NAND gate, this output gets reversed or it gets inverted. So you have 1, 1, 1 and 0. So this would be the truth table of a NAND gate. Now the NAND gate is an important gate. It's also called a universal gate because using the NAND gate, this is called a universal gate because using a NAND gate you can obtain a NOT gate, an OR gate and an AND gate. Do these as an exercise. This is also important. The half-life is given by T half is 0.693 over lambda, and the mean life, which we generally denote by tau, is given by 1 over lambda, where lambda is the disintegration constant. So T half, the half-life, can be written as 0.693 times the mean life. This is actually log 2, natural log 2, or you can also write this as log 2 times the mean life. The electric dipole moment is given by Q times 2L, where a dipole consists of a positive and a negative charge, each of magnitude Q, and the distance between the charges is 2L. The direction of this dipole moment vector is from the negative charge to the positive charge. Now the second part was to write the SI unit. The SI unit is Coulomb times meter. See, many times I'm not just stating the answer the way you have to write it in the exam, but I'm also giving a little bit of explanation. But you don't need to write all this explanation in the exam. The angle of dip is going to be 90 degrees at the poles, at the North Pole and the South Pole. And it's going to be 0 at the equator. So the answer for this would be at the North Pole and the South Pole. Now over here you're given a hollow metal sphere of radius 5 cm and the potential on the surface is mentioned to be 10 volts. So in this case, say you have a hollow metal sphere and the potential on the surface is 10 volts and the radius of the sphere is 5 cm. Now we know that the electric field is given by the negative gradient of potential, or the electric field acts along the direction in which the potential decreases. Now, inside a hollow sphere, the electric field is 0, which can be proved using Gauss's law. So the electric field is 0 inside the sphere. If the electric field is 0, then we can say using this expression that minus dV by dr is 0, or dV is 0, and which implies that V is constant. So the electric potential at the center of the sphere will also be 10 volts. There is no potential gradient, there is no change in potential as you move from the surface of the sphere to a point inside the sphere. You know that radio waves are electromagnetic waves, and electromagnetic waves are produced by the acceleration of charged particles. So in case of radio waves, we have the acceleration and deceleration of electrons. Electrons are accelerated and decelerated in the areal of the transmitter, so that radio waves are produced which can then be transmitted. The electric field inside the dielectric decreases due to the polarization of the medium. Due to the polarization of the dielectric, an electric field is created which is in the opposite direction. For instance, say we have two sheets over here. One is positively charged and the other is negatively charged. So you have an electric field which is in this direction. Now, if we place a dielectric over here, then the dielectric is going to get polarized, which means that you'll have small dipole moments which get aligned. So if this is a positive charge, so the negative charges are here and the positive on this side, again negative here and positive on this side. So effectively this, you have similar dipoles which are aligned along the field. So you have a layer of negative charge on this side and you have a layer of positive charge on this side. Now if we have a layer of negative charge on this side and a layer of positive charge on this side, that means the electric field inside the dielectric will be in the opposite direction. It is opposite to the external field over here which is present. So effectively the field inside gets decreased. We are given a charged particle enters a uniform magnetic field and the force is indicated in the upward direction, and we need to find out the sign of the charge on the particle. Now the force on a charged particle is given by Q V cross B, where V is the velocity and B is the magnetic field. This force is perpendicular to both V and B. In this case over here, this is the direction of V and this is B. Now the force is upwards, which means if you curl your fingers in this direction, then your thumb is going to point in the upward direction, which gives you the direction of the force. So the charge over here on the particle is positive. Q is positive. If you would have got that the force on the particle is in the downward direction, that means the charge on the particle would have been negative.